Hey guys, today's episode, we are going to do some news and notes. We've got a Would You Rather comparing two players in the draft here, and we've got our top 5 stacks. We got stacks on stacks on stacks today, guys. Don't forget to like, follow, subscribe, share on YouTube. Let's go, baby. All right. Welcome to the show. This is the Frankly Fantasy Football Podcast. We are your hosts, Frankie and Johnny. Welcome in, brother. We are so close, man. Can you taste it? Can you taste it?
I can taste it. I can feel it. I can smell it going all the way through my body, John. I'm loving it, baby.
Oh, I got a lot of jokes there. You should never open me up to something like that. What does it taste like, Frank?
Well, it usually tastes like crisp, cool draft beers with slight buffalo medium-style wings dipped in crispy, cool ranch. Yes, that's what it tastes like, John.
Wow. I wasn't expecting that descriptive of a description, I guess.
Well, look at us.
I mean, yeah, you really made me feel and taste that. I could actually taste it. Yeah, okay. That sounds great. Hey, let's hurry up and do this episode. I need a beer and some fucking wings, man. Let's go.
There you go.
All right. Hey, thank you so much for joining us, everybody. Guys, I have to thank you with the bottom of my heart, at the bottom of my heart, the growth of this channel. I just want to thank you guys so much. We're just going crazy with subscribers and views, and we just thank you so much for listening, guys. Yeah. We try to give you some good advice, try to lay things out for you with fantasy and keep you up to date on what's happening. And we try to say some stupid things and make you laugh as well, because that's just who we are. But thank you so much, you guys. Really, really appreciate it. All right. Today, we've got some news and notes for the first time. Ooh. So we're going to be doing this now. It's time. It's time, buddy.
It's time.
It's camp. It's preseason. There's injuries. There's things happening. We're going to keep you all abreast of what's happening every episode with some news and notes. Today, we're also going to be doing a Would You Rather. We're going to compare two players. We're going to do this until drafts happen here over the next couple of weeks. But we're going to compare two players together that are very close in ADP. These are decisions you will have to make. They're in the same tier as each other. Lay both guys out for you. Give an argument of which guy each of us would take over the other. Sometimes we agree. Many times we do not. And that always makes it fun. But hopefully that'll be good for you guys here. And then we're going to do today's episode as our top 5 stacks. Stacks are huge, guys. Very important in fantasy football, especially over the past, I don't know, maybe 5 to 8 years or so. Stacks are big. So we're going to talk about our favorite ones and give you some ideas so you can plan ahead in your draft. All right, Frankie, let's get into the news, baby.
The season 2000 yards just doesn't expect absolutely lost.
News and notes.
All right, we got a couple of big guys here that you're going to be looking at in the first round, first couple of picks, actually. CeeDee Lamb, Jamyr Chase, wide receivers, both holding out, or I guess holding in. They're there. They're just not participating, getting fined every single day they miss. But they're holding in for a new contract. You see any issues here, Frank? I think they're going to get paid before the season starts. What do you think?
Paid, John. I'm not really nervous for Jamyr Chase. I think that they knew that this was coming. The CeeDee Lamb one, John, actually does kind of make me a little bit squeamish. The only reason is because they're going to have to really figure out who they're paying here. Because if it's going to be Dak is going to be owed around 60 plus million. They're going to have to think about Micah Parsons. They're also, CeeDee Lamb, all these different things. They just paid their top guards. So, John, for me, man, this is going to be something we want to keep close to the vest and really see what happens. But honestly, I really see them just doing the right thing and paying CeeDee. But it's going to be very interesting to see what kind of unfolds.
All right, a couple other guys here. Jamyr Gibbs. I know we've been hearing some injury news on that. He had a hamstring injury during camp, but Lions head coach Dan Campbell loved it. God, I hope we get some good Dan Campbell quotes this year, man. His quote was, "We're good. We're good." So he's saying we're good. At this point, I'm not really worried about Jamyr Gibbs. They'll just continue to monitor that, make sure he doesn't have any setbacks, but I'm still firing him up where he's going in ADP in first round. Hollywood Brown out 4 to 6 weeks. Yeah, this is unfortunate because we were excited about the opportunity and the potential for Hollywood Brown with Patrick Mahomes. He's out 4 to 6 weeks, expected to miss at least week 1 due to a shoulder injury. He didn't have surgery on it, but they're 4 to 6 weeks. He could be out till maybe week 3, week 4. So keep that in mind when we're drafting. We know he's not going to be available early in the season here. DeAndre Hopkins, very similar situation here. Wide receiver for the Tennessee Titans. Suffered a knee injury a few weeks ago. It's going to keep him out several weeks to rehab. Doesn't need surgery. He's saying, and they're saying at the moment, he may be available for week 1. So monitor that situation as well. I'd be surprised if he's out there in week 1, to be perfectly honest with you. Pat's head coach, Patriots, Gerard Mayo, says the QB competition isn't over between Drake May and Jacoby Brissett. Frankie, you just watched a little bit of that game Thursday night here. What's that looking like, man?
Woo, man. Before that game, I was on board with Jacoby Brissett. Get your brisket out because he's starting week 1. And John, I mean, he did not have a good showing in the first 4 drives that he did. And then Drake May came, he ended up having, I think he was 3 for 10, John, a few yards, nothing crazy, and an interception. That was Jacoby Brissett. Drake May comes in. Again, it's the twos, so I understand that. But, man, led a hell of a drive, played really well, had a touchdown, his first NFL preseason touchdown. Offense seemed to move a little bit. So for me, man, yeah, I agree. This is really interesting. We're going to want to see how this kind of unfolds.
Yeah, I'm not sure how much fantasy impact and value it has between Drake May and Jacoby Brissett, but you never know. A stud quarterback coming in, unknown, could make a difference on a team. They've got a receiver with Polk, who's a rookie, who's been flashing in preseason and camp as well.
And Javon Baker. Javon Baker, the other rookie that they have from UCF, John, he looks solid, man. I mean, keep a pulse on him. He could totally be a dark horse to be in those 4 receiver sets and make a difference.
It's interesting for me because with Brissett on the team, I'm really not interested in anybody on the team. Maybe Ramondre Stevenson later if he falls to me and it is a good value, but I'm not really interested in any of the passing attack here. But with Drake May, we don't know who Drake May is. He could be very good. He could be we've seen rookies come in and just blow up. So that could be interesting. I'll be watching that to see if they can turn me into a Pats fan in fantasy this year, because as of right now, I am not. All right. Oh, some sad news here, man. I hate seeing this. Speaking of rookie quarterbacks, J.J. McCarthy, rookie quarterback for the Minnesota Vikings, is going to miss the entirety of the 2024 season with a torn meniscus that does require surgery. That's tough, man. We did a rookie review and we both really liked the opportunity for J.J. McCarthy, and to have to beat out Sam Darnold seems very, very feasible and very plausible. Played well, but yeah, man, that's a rough one. He will be gone. Sam Darnold will be the starting quarterback for the Minnesota Vikings. Let's stay on the Vikings here. Another injury update. Jordan Addison left practice on a cart with an ankle injury. Looked bad. Taken out on a cart, that's never a good thing. However, they're saying that he's not going to miss extended time. He could be available for week 1, is what it's sounding like. But the other problem with Jordan Addison, keep this in mind, guys. He's got a DUI pending court in October. NFL minimum is 3 games for a DUI. He will have a suspension coming, whether it's this year or in the offseason for next year. Keep that in mind. If you're trying to decide between 2 guys, knowing that Jordan Addison could miss some time, not only that, he's got Sam Darnold throwing him the fucking ball. That's going to change my views on Jordan Addison just a tad here. All right, another guy that I love, Malik Neighbors. I'm so happy. He's good to go. He had an ankle injury in camp, but everything seems to be fine. At this point, I'm still looking at Malik Neighbors as I looked at him going in and very excited about him. Yes, absolutely. Keep it with the Giants here. Giants rookie running back Tyrone Tracy backing up Devin Singletary right now. He's week to week with a low ankle sprain. Doesn't seem like it's going to be too bad. It's a low ankle sprain. It's going to take a few weeks. He'll be okay. Good to know for handcuff purposes, though. Tyrone Tracy. All right, that is the news, baby. Let's get into our Would You Rather, Frankie.
Would you rather poke a stick up in your eye or eat a bag of shit? Sit up on a pineapple or throw it on her dick? I said, would you rather?
Okay, today's Would You Rather, guys, we are looking at, this is a good one, Frank. Love this one, man. We've got Michael Pittman Jr., wide receiver for the Indianapolis Colts versus DK Metcalf, my man, my guy, and my boy band. He's part of my boy band. Yeah. What did I say? A couple years ago, I think I wanted to lick his chest or something. I got super gay about DK.
Hey, I get it. I mean, how can you not, you know?
DK Metcalf, wide receiver for the Seattle Seahawks. All right, let's compare these guys because I have to be honest with you, Frankie. Even looking at your notes and your research on this, I still, as of right now recording, I don't know which one I'm going to choose. I really don't. So our conversation here is going to make me make a decision. So lay it out for me, brother.
Love it. John, I'm going to start with MPJ, okay? Michael Pittman Jr. for that of the Indianapolis Colts. John, right now he's walking in as receiver 20. His ECR is ranked as 20, expert consensus ranking. His ADP, average draft position, is that of 37. So just a couple key callouts here, man. Looking at what he did last year, right? Think about it. He started off with Anthony Richardson. Anthony Richardson goes down. Gardner Minshew comes into play. He still had an incredible season. He had roughly about 198 fantasy points in half PPR, John. He also then, what did that mean? How did he get those fantasy points? 156 targets. Let me pause. 156 targets, okay? That's a lot, man, especially when you have Alec Pierce, you had Josh Downs, a few of these other guys, yeah, that's a lot. And then that ended up transferring into 109 receptions, 1,152 yards, and 4 touchdowns. Dude had a hell of a season with subpar quarterback play to a certain degree. So let's dive in, John, a little bit into some of the pros and cons with Michael Pittman Jr. Pros here. He played with Gardner Minshew for most of the year. Why is that a pro? Because we only see the quarterback play getting better with Anthony Richardson being healthy. Anthony Richardson was drafted in the top 5 picks as a rookie, and therefore they're going to be utilizing him from the deep ball threat all the way to the rushing attack, so on and so forth. So therefore, it really helps. The other thing to call out, when he was playing with Anthony Richardson, John, in the first 3 games, he had 34 targets in 3 games. He also ended up having 25 receptions, 230 yards, and a touchdown. That is phenomenal to see from a rookie quarterback throwing that to that of Michael Pittman Jr. So that's why this is such a pro, knowing Anthony Richardson is back. Then you layer on Jonathan Taylor. The reason why this is a pro is because without Jonathan Taylor, yes, they had Zach Moss last year. I don't want to discount or discredit anything Zach Moss did because it was really good, but it's not Jonathan Taylor. Now that you have Jonathan Taylor here, it opens up the passing game even more. And so because of these different elements that have changed from last year to this year, assuming everyone is healthy, John, Michael Pittman Jr. could be in for a very fun year. Now, let's talk about some of the cons here, man. So some of the issues that I have is that the Colts have added Adonai Mitchell right to the roster. Innately, this is going to take away some targets, right? We're not talking Alec Pierce now. Where was Alec Pierce, Josh Downs, Michael Pittman Jr.? Now it's Adonai Mitchell, Josh Downs, as well as Alec Pierce here and there, but then that of Michael Pittman Jr. So the target share, there will be some targets taken away from that of Michael Pittman Jr., assumingly with the emergence of that of AD Mitchell. The other thing, as I was talking about Anthony Richardson, we have to also take into consideration a slight con that could come with this, and that is his rushing ability. Even though that will open up some dump-off passes and things like that, what the difference is last year, man, Gardner Minshew didn't have that rushing capability. So when issues came push to shove, he was trying to offload the ball. Even if he was putting it in throwing it away, even if he was trying to get it to Michael Pittman Jr., the goal was not for Gardner Minshew to run. The goal was for him to throw. In Anthony Richardson's situation, if he gets outside the pocket, he might not be looking down the field as much to throw the ball, therefore taking away additional targets from that of Michael Pittman Jr., knowing he's going to be rushing. So it's a slight con for the overarching pro of that of Anthony Richardson, but I would have been remiss if I didn't say that.
When you're saying that, I'm trying to look at it and see, okay, now this situation is a little different. How is it going to translate this year? Because you're right, with Gardner Minshew is a very different quarterback than Anthony Richardson, which we still don't really know. We're talking 3 games with Anthony Richardson, and he got hurt in the beginning of the 4th game. So we still don't know how this is actually going to play out. But what's good for me, I'm looking at the stats right now. As you were talking about that, the 3 games that MPJ did play with Anthony Richardson, he had a good target volume, man. 11 targets, 12 targets, 11 targets. The 3 games that Anthony Richardson played. So that's interesting and encouraging to me that he was still able to get those targets even with a running quarterback. And you saw how much he ran. He rushed a lot. So it's still possible to get the targets, I think, through that. Now, again, with JT healthy, which he wasn't in those 3 games. Having JT, having Anthony Richardson, a lot of rushing, a lot of people spying in the backfield there.
Yep.
I think that will help. It will take away some targets, no question, because they're going to run the ball more often than they threw the ball last year with Gardner Minshew. But I think it is going to open up lanes for Michael Pittman Jr. I think you are going to see guys sneaking up towards the line, paying attention to Anthony Richardson, paying attention to Jonathan Taylor. So I think it could help MPJ in that aspect. I think where it will really help MPJ, he only had 4 touchdowns last year. I think it puts them in a better position to score. They're going to be running the ball a lot more, from 20 to the 20, in the meat of the field. And I think they're going to have a lot more red zone opportunities with Anthony Richardson in and with Jonathan Taylor in. So his targets could go down slightly, but I think his touchdowns go up. He's going to be in a much better position by himself in the back of the end zone than I think he has in the past. Okay, let's talk a little bit about DK Metcalf, man. Lay him out for me.
John, DK Metcalf, you're sitting there. If you want DK, his ECR or his receiver ranking is 21. So 1 spot above that of Michael Pittman Jr. His ADP is 41 in comparison to Michael Pittman Jr.'s 37. So you almost get him at a slightly better value, just ever so slightly. So what did he do? DK, 2023 stats, John, he roughly had in half PPR about 196 fantasy points. Again, Michael Pittman Jr., roughly about 198. What was interesting with DK, though, was that he had 119 targets, which is significantly less than that of MPJ. He also had 66 receptions, significantly less than that of MPJ. But what was interesting is he still had 1,114 yards. And here's the differentiating stat here. 8 touchdowns in comparison to that of Michael Pittman Jr.'s 4. So you're doubling the touchdown share with that of, or the touchdowns in general with that of DK comparison to Michael Pittman Jr. So let's talk about the pros a little bit more with DK. Touchdown machine. Let's dive into the touchdowns full go. 26 touchdowns, John, in the last 3 years. That's what DK has been producing. He also never has finished below 900 yards receiving or under 6 touchdowns in a single season. He's never finished below that. He also went through this past year an immense coaching change, right? It was Pete Carroll last year with the offensive coordinator being that of Shane Waldron. And now they have Mike McDaniel as well as OC Ryan Grubb. So this could actually be a very good thing for DK. The reason being, man, is because we all know Pete Carroll, his offense has always been what? Ground and fucking pound. Marshawn Lynch, Sean Alexander, right? Some of these other cats that we've seen, like with, Rashad Penny even, Kenneth Walker Jr., they draft Zach Charbonnet in the recent years, right? So they have always been a ground and pound. Chris Carson, right? Don't forget about that dude. Loved him for years. So there's been always a stable of running backs that they always ran running back first and then would leverage the play action off of that. We have to wait and see what's going to happen with this offensive coordinator and how he's going to be calling plays. But again, I actually look at this as a positive because I don't think they can get any more run heavy than what they've been in the past. So anything additional will just be gravy for that of DK. Now, some of the concerns, some of the cons here. So the cons here, man, major competition. Okay, we're not talking that of right? Adonai Mitchell, who's a rookie. We're not talking about that of Josh Downs, who had a solid rookie year last year. We're talking two established guys. Even though JSN was a rookie last year, what he did in college, he's established. He's an absolute monster. Last year as a rookie, JSN had 93 targets. Lockett, John, still had 122 targets. What did I say DK had? He had 119. So Lockett is still dominating the target share overall, even though you can say, yeah, it's only 3 more targets than DK, but let's dive in a bit further. Tyler Lockett has had over 100 targets in 5 straight seasons now, and he's had 1,000+ yards in 4 out of the last 5 seasons. What that is telling me, John, is we're waiting for the cliff to kind of fall for that of Tyler Lockett, and the dude is Mr. Consistent. And so that is a big deal when you're looking to decide, do I roll with DK knowing the competition there, or do I roll with somebody like that of MPJ where it's not as solidified in terms of the competition? The other key call out is that Geno Smith at quarterback, right? It's very much so an average type of quarterback. Yes, he had a good year 2 years ago. Yes, he got paid, which deservingly so. But this dude is definitely in the back third of top producing quarterbacks, in my personal opinion. So again, when you're comparing kind of the quarterbacks here, man, you got Anthony Richardson, definitely more of an unknown, definitely more higher upside, absolutely lower floor based on his injury history in comparison to that of Geno Smith, who is steady Eddie, right? You know what you're getting from him. He's not going to have a shit ton of big blow up games. He's not going to really have a crap ton of really bad games. He's going to be pretty consistent across the board. So I kind of look at that as a con, because there's really no ceiling play there for that of DK. Then lastly, John, a con to think about, guys, is if you are playing in a league format that is PPR or half PPR. The reason this is important to call out is because if you're in a standard league, I don't need to talk anything further, man. You go with the touchdown dependency. You go with a guy who has been there, done it, and it has literally not had less than 900 yards receiving or 6 touchdowns in any season that he's played. Versus that of if you're PPR or half PPR, I'm going to go with the guy that has way more upside in terms of target share and receptions, right? Even though they're not as high from a touchdown dependency, I want to get that every single time they catch something, I'm getting a point, right? So when we look at the two differences, now that we've kind of broke down single-handedly, one by one, John, I want to tell you who I'm going with. I'm locking in Michael fucking Pittman Jr. for that of the Indianapolis Colts. And it's strictly because in half PPR, full PPR leagues, I mentioned the target share. But more importantly, I like the opportunity of a ceiling that Anthony Richardson provides. I think that's really enticing. The other key call out is we saw what happened when Anthony Richardson got hurt. Gardner Minshew came in, and therefore his production still did not drop, John. He still performed incredibly high. So do I go to the length of saying he's kind of, quarterback agnostic, right? No, I don't think so. I think that, yes, I actually do think so, if I'm being honest with you. I think that meaning he can play with any type of quarterback versus that of DK. I think if you're not getting the ball down the field or looking at him in the red zone, right, that is an issue. So if it's my personal perspective on this, man, I'm rolling with MPJ. What do you think? Come on, man. I know that hits you deep down with your boy band, but I'm curious.
It does. Hey, I will separate my emotions and my heart from my head when it comes to fantasy football or betting or any of that kind of stuff. You can't let emotions get in the way. Listen, I love DK Metcalf. He's a true alpha. You're right. He's very touchdown dependent. With those 8 touchdowns, keep in mind, 3 of them came in one game.
Good call. Good point.
So that's a big deal. That's a big deal. That's a couple of extra touchdowns there. And I think Lockett was hurt that game, in fact. But yeah, it's tough. He's got a lot of competition. I mean, Lockett is still hanging on. He's still 31 years old. Is this the cliff? Could be. I think if you're drafting DK Metcalf, that's sure as shit what you're hoping for.
Yep.
You're hoping that Tyler Lockett has hit a little bit of a cliff and DK is just going to be the alpha. But you're right. It's just a lower volume. It's a lower volume play. And when you're comparing Michael Pittman Jr., who we know is going to have the volume, I don't know if the offense is going to run through him. Going to be very heavy run offense as well. But We've seen it. And the same thing with Anthony Richardson, the risk there being low because if Richardson gets hurt again, which he probably will, this is a dude we may never see play a full season of football. I don't know. But guess who the backup is? It's Joe Flacco.
Flacco, baby.
So,
Flacco for Flacco.
That is not going to hurt MPJ at all.
So
if anything, it's going to hurt Jonathan Taylor and it's going to help MPJ, Yeah, so I'm with you, man. I'm sorry. We do agree on this one. If I'm looking at that tier and I'm building a team, and it really doesn't matter the format, really. I guess you're right. If it's a standard format, then I may look more towards DK Metcalf because something does happen to Tyler Lockett or JSN. He shoots up for sure. But you're right. Half PPR, without question. To me, it's Michael Pittman Jr. To get Michael Pittman Jr., both of these guys you're going to be looking at in the 4th round. They're right in that same tier. And for a 4th round, Michael Pittman Jr., get him as my flex or my wide receiver 2 if I went running backs up at the top. I love it, man. I love it. All right. Today's winner is Michael Pittman Jr. from the Indianapolis Colts. Congratulations, my friend. Hope we can get you on our teams. All right, Frankie. Well, next, let's get to the meat and potatoes here of today's episode. Why don't we? We got stacks, guys. We're going to talk about our top 5 stacks. We got stacks on stacks on stacks. Okay. All right. We're going to do them in order here. This was really tough to put these guys in order, but how we did this is basically based on value. Now, you may have a high-powered stack, but if it's going to cost you a 1st and 2nd round pick, that knocks it down in my mind because that makes it very, very dangerous. All right, we're going to start with 5 and go down worst to first here, 5 to 1. So, Frankie, our number 5 stack this year is going to be Jalen Hurts with A.J. Brown. All right, I've had this stack. I have won leagues with this stack before. I have, but a little more expensive now, Frankie. So lay it out for us, the Jalen Hurts, A.J. Brown stack.
So, John, we're going to, when looking at this stack, I'm going to really break this out into what they have done in 2023 last year. So first and foremost, where can you draft that of Jalen Hurts? Well, guys, he's number 1. Jalen Hurts' expert consensus rating is he's the number 3 quarterback off the board. His ADP is 30 at this point in time. So what he did last year, he had roughly about 377 points for the season in fantasy points. He had 3,858 passing yards, 23 passing touchdowns, 15 interceptions. But here's where Jalen Hurts gets the dirty done. And that is 605 rushing yards and that of 15 touchdowns. John, is that right? Can you confirm that that even is right? Because that sounds ridiculous at the fact that a quarterback had 15 rushing touchdowns. Keep me honest here, man.
It would appear that that is correct, Frank. Yes.
Crazy. That's crazy, guys. So Jalen Hurts, insane value from that standpoint. Let's look at then 2023 A.J. Brown, man. Expert consensus rating. So what is he ranked for just receivers? He's number 6 walking in. ADP is 9, guys. So what does that mean in terms of fantasy production last year? He had roughly about 243 fantasy points on 158 targets, 108 receptions. He had 1,456 receiving yards with 7 receiving touchdowns. And here's what's interesting, John, but with the Eagles themselves in this offense, what is their schedule ranking? Because this absolutely plays into consideration into not only the value that we'll hit on here in a second in terms of the draft pick, but also who are they playing? And John, they have the 9th easiest strength of schedule. So when you guys are looking at putting together stacks and things like that, we're taking into consideration a lot of different data points and elements here, that being strength of schedule being one of them. John, number 5 group here, really fascinating with Jalen Hurts and A.J. Brown.
That is, yeah. And which we haven't seen the Eagles have in quite a while.
Right.
A schedule that's that nice. Yeah, the Jalen Hurts, the reason why this is 5, you guys, it's the cost. This is an expensive stack. You're spending a 1st round and a 3rd round pick on the stack. And if you've seen our previous episode, we did a mock draft, and I did an experiment and I normally don't take quarterback that early, and I took Jalen Hurts because I took A.J. Brown in the 1st round. I wanted to do the stack and I wanted to see how the team ended up. I didn't love it.
Yeah.
We analyzed the teams at the end, and I looked at it and I said, you know what? I paid too much in the third round for Jalen Hurts. I would have been much better off having another receiver or running back in that third round in that spot, just how I would have preferred to have the team.
Yeah.
So keep that in mind. It's still a top stack because I'll tell you what, if I'm playing against an opponent and I see they've got the Jalen Hurts, A.J. Brown stack, I'm pissing my pants. It's not fun. You don't want to play against it. There are times where that will smoke you. But it's number 5 because of the cost. It's expensive. Now, other things you can do here, guys, is we've got the top badass stacks here that we're talking about, but don't be afraid to stack it with the second guy. Stack it with Devonta Smith. That's a great stack option because typically you're going to get some deeper shots with Devonta Smith, some longer plays, and those will really shoot you up and give you some stacks on stacks on stacks. But don't be afraid of the second guy. We'll talk about a few others too, and keep in mind, there are others receivers on these teams that you can pair up with these quarterbacks, still have a very nice stack, but these are the top ones.
And John, one other call out real quick here is they also added Saquon Barkley. So when we talk about those 15 rushing touchdowns, I really do not see Jalen Hurts replicating that because they don't have DeAndre Swift behind, who's more of a Swifty type of back. It's going to be more of that of ground and pound with that of Saquon, who can do all of the things, right? So just want to make sure I called that out. That also feeds into the number 5 as well.
And Nick Sirianni's smart. These teams, especially in the division, are going to figure out a way to stop the tush push. They're going to figure something out. These guys are too smart. They're going to figure something out that will just negate that. And Sirianni's smart. He's going to go into the season knowing they're going to do that. They're going to have something. They're going to come up. How would I stop the tush push? They're going to have Saquon involved in that, and it's going to be some type of fake tush push with Saquon. Yeah. It's going to score a couple times. It will happen. I guarantee it. Yeah. All right. Let's get to the next stack here, man. Number 4 on the list. This one's interesting. This one was hard to rank because we just haven't seen it yet. This is a new stack. We're talking Kyler Murray and Marvin Harrison Jr., baby, for the Arizona Cardinals. Break it out for us, man. This one excites me a little bit.
This one's super exciting. And guys, just listen to this breakdown here because you'll understand why we're looking at number 4. So last year, Kyler Murray in 2023, he only played 8 games, but he still had a fairly productive 8 games. John, walking into this year, he's ECR ranking of 10. So he's the 10th overall quarterback. ADP is floating around that of 74. But again, last year in terms of points, he had 145 fantasy points in 8 games. It's really solid. He ended up having about 1,800 yards passing. He actually had 1,799. He also threw 10 touchdowns, 5 interceptions, but still had 244 rushing yards and 3 rushing touchdowns. Then you look at what Marvelous Marv has done. And John, when you look at his college stats, it's incredible. We had that rookie review really hit on that. If you guys haven't checked that out, check that out. It's really, really awesome. It'll give you a really nice overview in terms of Marvin Harrison, what you can expect, what he's done previously. But I'll give you a couple cliff notes. He ended up having 1,200 yards receiving last year, 67 receptions, 14 touchdowns, and actually had 1 rushing touchdown. The other interesting call out here, John, is again, looking at the strength of schedule, they're right dead smack in the middle. They're 16th in strength of schedule. So literally in the very, very pinnacle of the delta of the middle there. And so really fun when we start digesting and really getting into Kyler Murray, Marv, why are they kind of number 4 over that of Jalen Hurts and that of A.J. Brown? John, I think you got a couple cool points that you're going to lay down here.
Yeah, I mean, we didn't talk about it with A.J. Brown and Jalen Hurts, but wanted to look at their average points per game. Jalen Hurts was 22, A.J. Brown was 14. So combined, the stack averaged 36 points per game. That's pretty damn good. That's not bad at all. Now, the point is, and why I had to move Kyler and Marvin Harrison up, is Kyler averaged on a very shit season for the Cardinals. Kyler still averaged 19 points a game. I had to go back and make Frank double check this stat over and over again because I couldn't believe it. So if Kyler Murray can average 19 points a game with Hollywood Brown injured up and down, they didn't really have much of a receiving core last year or much of a team for that matter. If he can average 19 points a game with that, you're adding Marvin Harrison Jr. in there, which, come on, I know we haven't seen it yet, but the target, the opportunity, and the talent, the two things I want in fantasy football, he has both. And then some.
Yeah.
Marvin Harrison can average 20 points a game. Absolutely, that is in the realm of possibility for him at a half PPR or PPR. And Kyler averaging 19 points last year, that should go way up. So I just think together, they're going to score a lot of points together because they're the team. They really are. So I love this stack, man. And especially, here's why I really like this. It's the value. It's where you can get these guys. You're not spending your first and third round pick on this. The reason why I love this, Kyler Murray's going in the 6th, Marvin Harrison Jr. going in the 2nd, a 2nd round and a 6th round stack that could be potentially the best stack this season in fantasy football. It definitely could be. I love it. I'm all over this one. Okay, let's go to the next stack here. Number 3.
Trace.
All right, this is another one that was difficult to do just because, again, we haven't seen a lot of these guys together yet. Joe Burrow, Jamyr Chase from the Cincinnati Bengals. Frankie, lay it out for us, brother.
Yeah, man. So this one's interesting because what I want to focus on is Joe Burrow's stats in 2022, right? Because last year he was really hurt pretty much for the majority of the year, out for season. And then I'll focus on Jamyr Chase, what he also did in a little bit of 2022, but also want to focus on last year for him. So Joe Burrow in 2022, John, he ended up having 369 fantasy points. He threw for over 4,500 passing yards, 36 touchdowns, 12 interceptions, and still ran the ball 259 yards and 4 rushing touchdowns. John, this year, what we're looking at is Joe Burrow's expert consensus ranking, or where he ranks in all of the quarterbacks, is number 7, and his ADP is 62. So really, really good value there. I know you'll hit on that here in a second. But when we look at what Jamyr Chase did last year without that of Burrow, right, he still balled out. He had roughly about 220 fantasy points, 145 targets, 100 receptions, over 1,200 yards receiving, 7 touchdowns. And John, what's really interesting here is that when we look at what he did in 2022, man, like in terms of like what he actually averaged in terms of points versus that of 2023, it actually went up 3 points. Like from 2022 was 3 points higher with that of Burrow. So he averaged about 16 fantasy points a game versus that of 13 fantasy points without that of Joe Burrow. So when Joe Burrow's playing, man, we're seeing both of them elevate each other. Now, this was interesting as well. When we start diving into the strength of schedule here, they're actually the 6th easiest strength of schedule, which was fascinating because basically every other AFC North team is in the top 5 hardest schedules. So which means that, I mean, this is really fun if you're honing in on that of Burrow and that of
because
Jamyr
they
Chase,
lost
man.
the division, right?
Exactly.
Yeah,
that's correct. So really, really interesting stuff, man.
Yeah, it is. I mean, this is a stack that this used to be the Jalen Hurts, AJ Brown stack where you had to pay first and third round. Joe Burrow's not going third round anymore. Joe Burrow's going in the 5th round, roughly 5th, 6th round. So to do a first round and a 5th round, that's why they're the number 3 stack, because we haven't really seen it in a full season together. When we have seen it, it's magical. He had 100 catches on 145 targets, 1,200 yards and 7 touchdowns without Joe Burrow.
Without Burrow.
Bring it on, baby. Bring it. I want some. Give me some of that, baby. And not only that, Jamyr Chase, he's climbing up my board. He's right behind CeeDee Lamb and Tyreek Hill for me. Really, and it's not even close. He's above JJ, he's above Amon-Ra. So yeah, man, I want Jamyr Chase on my team. And if I get Jamyr Chase to wait till 5th, 6th round to grab the quarterback and grab that stack, I'm doing it every single time. Love it.
And John, they also average together, just so those folks know, when you look at the points combined on the average per game, I mean, John, in 2022, Burrow averaged 23 points a game. And as I mentioned, Jamyr Chase averaged 16 points a game when they played together. That's 39 points a game you're getting out of this stack. And to your point, when you're only having to give up a 5th and a 1st, you're targeting, like, you're not even worried about the 1st-round pick with Jamar Chase. That's gold. That is so beautiful. It's more of the 5th round and maybe some of the injury history. Set that to the side. I'm on board. I think Burrow's going to tear up the NFL this year. So what I'm getting at is when you combine those two at 39 points, when we looked at and comparing that to that of Hurts and A.J. Brown at 36 and that of Marv and Kyler Murray, again, Kyler Murray's averaging 19 points. If we think Marv is going to be similar to that, maybe a little bit less or maybe to your point, if he hits the 20 mark, they're going to be right there as well. So I love what they do together. And to your point, the reason why they're 3rd overall in stack ranking is because of the value you can get as well as the points per game they're doing together.
Absolutely. Slim Shady's coming out this year firing, man. I guarantee it. Did you see his haircut? I love the hair.
Awesome. It was so awesome.
I love
Did you
Joe
see,
Burrow.
by the way, in the Sleeper app too, for those of you who have Sleeper, literally the picture of Joe Burrow is Eminem. It's hilarious. Like, guys, shout out Sleeper. Well done.
When you're doing mock drafts and you go to draft Joe Burrow, pull it up. It shows the profile and it's the Slim Shady. It's so good. I love it. Well done, Sleeper. All right, let's get to number 2. Dividing up number 2 and number 1 were very difficult, by the way.
Very close.
Yeah. Number 2 stack on our list here, Tua Tagovailoa and Tyreek Hill on the Miami Dolphins. Man, this is one of those stacks that does absolutely terrify you. Every year, I swear to God, over the past 3 years, I feel like we've had guys that have this stack in every one of my leagues. And I felt like I went through a period because I do so many leagues. I had like 5 weeks in a row where I had to play against the Tua Tyreek stack. I mean, it's just, you get there and you go, fuck, really? Again? Oh, man. These guys torched me last year. I've never had the stack, but this is the year that I would love to do it, man. And the reason why these guys are number 2, it did fizzle a little bit towards the end of the year, but they started off hot, man. It got real hot in there. But the reason I love this is the value. We'll get into the value in a minute, but break us out, Tua and Tyreek the Freak, man.
Yeah, man. Tua last year, guys, he ended up having 310 fantasy points. And what did that equate to? He had 4,600 passing yards, 29 passing touchdowns, 14 interceptions. And when we look at what he's ranked this year, John, his ECR is 14. So what does that mean, guys? If you're in a 10 or 12-man league, he might not even be drafted until very, 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 very late because he's not being projected as a top 12 quarterback. In addition, John, his ADP is 105, so you can get some super solid value there. But of course, when we look at Tyreek the Freak, man, you're paying for him and you want him on your team. Fun fact, actually, before I dive into some of the stats, John, did you know that Tyreek Hill was the first player outside of a quarterback to be ranked number 1 in NFL's top 100 players by the players, which was really cool. So what that tells me is mad respect from the rest of the NFL, number 1. Number 2, Tyreek continues to produce like an absolute freak of nature. And so what did that equate to last year, man? He ended up having just about 331 fantasy points in total, 171 targets. He had 119 receptions. He was 1 yard shy of 1,800 receiving yards, and he had 13 touchdowns. Holy shit. And then, John, to just cherry on top, they got to have a tough schedule, right? They have to. Nope. They have the 8th easiest schedule in strength of schedule. So now you're marrying a guy who is, I mean, it's really CeeDee Lamb, Tyreek Hill, right? For whichever receiver you're picking first. So let's just say he's 1 or 2, number 1 or number 2 receiver overall. And then you're marrying that with the 8th easiest schedule, John. Delicious. That's what that is.
Give me some, man. Yeah, I mean, one of the reasons why this is the number 2 stack, again, it's the price tag. Now, listen, if you want to take Tyreek Hill, number 1 overall in front of CMC, I got no problem with that.
Go for it.
No problem at all. He's got much higher likelihood of hitting than CMC does anyway. And yeah, I love it, man. But what I love the most about it is that you get Tyreek Hill in the first round. you can wait until the 9th round to
Oof.
get Tua. So you can plan ahead. You grab Tyreek immediately. You're just sitting there going, okay, when do I play this game? And you're watching Tua. You're watching him. You're looking at him the whole time. And if you have to jump around early into round 8 or so to grab him, do it by all means. This will pay off for you. 36 fantasy points combined between the two of them last year? That's gold. You get close to 40. You can get 40 points a game with your stack. Damn good. You're going to love that. But yeah, I mean, the price tag is wonderful. A first and a 9th round pick scares the shit out of your opponents. And I love it, man. I mean, these Tyreek stats are crazy. 171 targets, 119 catches, 1,800 yards, and 13 touchdowns. Jesus
Crazy.
Christ. Those are insane stats, man. Yeah.
With Waddle performing well, with Devon Achane performing well, with Raheem Mostert having, right? I think he had the most rushing touchdowns last year, or at least he was in the top 3, something like that. I mean, that's absurd, man. So I love Mike McDaniel's offense here, man.
I do too. Yeah, it's a fun stack. I'm going to be looking to do it here, man, for sure. Targeting that. All right, let's get to number one. Our number one stack and our top 5 here. Okay, man. It's the Dak stack. It's the Dak stack, baby. It's Dak Prescott and CeeDee Lamb from them boys, from the Cowboys. Lay it out for us, man.
I mean, it's just so weird to say this because I just feel like Dak's one of those guys that's just sneaky good in fantasy. Like, he's always disrespected when you're drafting him. And then it's like, oh shit, he pops off for, what did he do last year? 389 fantasy points.
All the Cowboys fans hate him.
Hate him? What?
Everybody I know that's a Cowboys fan, they bitch about Dak and how he can't close the deal and can't do this. And I'm looking at him on my fantasy team going, he's kicking ass to me. I don't know what your problem is.
You know why? It's because he can't get over the hump in the playoffs. But you know what?
It's fantasy.
Okay, we're talking fantasy.
I don't give a fuck.
Yep.
All right.
Yep. It must be nice to go to the playoffs every year, assholes. Yeah. Oh, sorry.
Yeah, I know. Oh, no. Is that annoying? You lose in the playoffs every year? Oh, no.
Oh, sorry. You had a 12-win season, pricks. But what he ended up having, John, last year.
Browns fans. It's all right. Sorry,
yeah,
guys.
it's fine. Yeah, sorry. It's not a big deal. Fuck you, game 1. We're coming after you. We're going to eat your ass. Sorry. That's sidebar there. 4,500 passing yards, John, 36 touchdowns, 9 interceptions, 242 rushing yards, and 2 rushing touchdowns. Dak Prescott was incredible last year. And what's interesting, John, he's still getting shade thrown at him. And what do I mean by this? His ECR, he is ranked 8th in terms of overall quarterbacks, and his ADP is 75. Okay, which is really crazy because if you think about, right, all the other quarterbacks that we mentioned, John, Dak Prescott had 389. Okay, let's talk about the number 2. The number 2 set here was that of Tua Tyreek. Tyreek had 310. When we look at Kyler Murray, who we talked about number 4, obviously, right, he had 145 in 8 games. But if you extrapolate that out and double that, right, we're still looking at roughly about 290. And then you look at Jalen Hurts, with 377 fantasy points last year. And then obviously Joe Burrow with the 403 or roughly something along those lines. Yeah, he had roughly about, let me double check that, John. Oh, he actually had 369, fantasy points in that of 2022. So John,
Dak had more points than all these guys.
That's what I'm saying. Dak had more fantasy points than all of these other quarterbacks that we're talking about. And then we look at what CeeDee Lamb did, John. Oh my Lord. He had 344 fantasy points. John, we thought it was incredible what Tyreek did with 171 targets. CeeDee Lamb had 181 targets last year, 135 receptions, 1,749 yards receiving, 12 touchdowns, 112 rushing yards, and 2 rushing touchdowns.
My God.
Holy shit. And then, John, you layer on the strength of schedule. This is where it's interesting. They actually have the 10th hardest strength of schedule this year. Now, typically, I would say this is a con, this is a knock. Why I could see this not being as as much of a knock as what it normally would be is because I think that this will make this stack have to connect even more so. They're going to have to throw the ball even more. They don't have that of Tony Pollard anymore. They bring in that of Zeke, right? They still have Rico Dowdle.
Look at you.
The
Only
Dowds.
took 3 episodes of fucking
It
that
only
name up to
took-
get it right.
Look at
Yeah.
that. You know,
All right.
an old Don can learn new tricks. Look at that. Well,
All you had
So-
to do is just get
Yeah.
brudalized on YouTube in the comments, and you made a
Absolute-
correction. Look, you're
crucified
learning,
at that point.
Frank. You live, you learn, you adjust. Look at you. All right.
Thank you, guys. So yes, man, the 10th hardest strength of schedule. So I think that this could actually end up boding well for this stack. But John, as the number 1 stack, this is going to be fun to watch in 2024.
It's going to be fun. And you know what? The value is there, man. With Dak still getting all that shade, I mean, he outscored all of those other quarterbacks. You're spending a first round, which, by the way, if you want to take CeeDee Lamb as a number 1 pick overall, I have no problem with that either, because it's just those numbers are absolutely insane. And they're going to have to run it through him again this year, which is why he's holding out. He knows the situation. You know, you pay for those numbers, my friends. But the cost for you in fantasy, it's a first round pick and a 6th round pick. I love that. It gives you so much more flexibility. You take CeeDee, you damn well should be targeting Dak. It's ridiculous not to go after that stack if you draft CeeDee Lamb. I don't see why you wouldn't do that. He's scoring more points than any of those quarterbacks that you're going to get in the 3rd or 4th round. And you can go 2 rounds later and load up on running back and receiver depth. Or you can go get a badass tight end instead.
Yeah.
So waiting for that 6th round for your quarterback is just gold, man. That's why it's our number 1. And yeah, I'm going after this stack. I've had it before, and it's a goddamn blast, man. Also terrifying to look at when your opponent has this against you.
Terrifying. And John, when you start looking at, okay, well, what did they do in terms of points per game on average, and what is it combined? Guys, CeeDee Lamb is a receiver in half PPR, averaged about 20 points a game. And Dak was averaging 21 points a game. Guys, that is 41 points in half PPR. If you want to even check out full PPR, I believe CeeDee Lamb was averaging around 24 to 25 points, depending on how your league format is set up. Guys, that's ridiculous. 41 points on average per game between 2 guys. Sign me up, and you only have to get rid of 1 first-round pick.
Oh, that's
really
it's
fun.
absolutely massive, man. I mean, you get over 40 points on average between your
That's
stack.
crazy. On average.
That's so money, baby. It's so money. All right, ladies and gentlemen, thank you so much. That is the episode for today. I hope you enjoyed the Would You Rather, and I hope you enjoyed the top 5 stacks. All right. Frankie, what do we have coming up for people besides drafting? Real soon.
Guys. Yeah, guys. We're getting you prepared and ready for your drafts. We're going to be dropping a few more mock drafts. Stay in touch with those. Continue to ask us questions on YouTube and social media. We love it when you guys even question some of our picks and ask why we did those. Guys, it only helps you out. And in addition, we're going to be doing a few more Would You Rathers. We're going to be bringing you some more news and notes and making sure that you have all of the up-to-date information from camp to make your drafts smooth and sexy.
Oh, yeah. And then we've got our champions episode coming up too, Frankie. That's my favorite. I love that
It's
episode.
the best, dude. It's so much fun.
It is. Because we talk shit about each other's champions all
big
throughout the
time.
season.
All year.
Yeah. All right. Thank you so much for listening and watching, everyone. Please follow us on social media, on X at Frankly Fantasy F, and on Facebook, on Instagram and YouTube at Frankly Fantasy Football. And please like, share, comment on YouTube, subscribe to YouTube, guys. Good videos, good films, and you get to look at us. Not horrible. You know, Frankie's at least a good-looking guy. I got work.
6.
I'm working on it. Yeah.
We're figuring it out.
I'm a 5 with upside. For
Ooh,
sure.
I love that. So you're probably like, what, drafted in like the 5th round, 6th round, something like that?
Yeah, I'm starting to
Your
rise
dad?
because of my strength of schedule. You know, I get, yeah, that's pretty much. I got fourth less, strength of schedule.
Perfect. Yeah, there you go. I love it.
You know what? I love you, man. Let's go. May the fantasy gods smile upon you. Bye.